Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Violet.
And I'm Ruby.
And today we're taking a look at a humongous game, really, or at least a large size game called Super Fantasy Brawl. And while we're at it, I'm also going to just show off some of the stuff from Force of Nature. The first expansion for the game. This all does is add 3 more characters. So Super Fantasy Brawl is a game where there's an arena, and you got two teams of, well, you could play with more than 2 people, but we're going to talk about the 2-player game here. We each have 3 characters, like typical fantasy people, right? Mm-hmm. And your goal in this game is to get 5 points, and you get 5 points from 2 different ways. Punching the other people, also punching them, but accomplishing goals. That's how you play. Here's how it plays, and then we'll tell you what we thought. In this game, you're going to bring or draft or pick somehow 3 characters, and there is quite a few characters to pick from in this game. There are 12 different ones that come in the base game and then 3 more in the expansion. And you're going to pick the 3 characters. Each character comes with their own deck of cards. There's 6 cards. You'll notice there's 2 yellows, 2 blues, and 2 reds. 5 of the cards can only be used by that character. The 6th card is a defensive card and can be used by any of the 3 characters. You're going to take the 3 decks of these cards, so you have an 18-card deck. You're going to be shuffling this deck and playing with 5 cards over the course of, you're going to draw 5 cards to start the round off. The goal of the game is to be the first player to get 5 victory points. And there are 2 main ways to get victory points. One is by knocking out an opponent who will then respawn in their starting area. So you notice you have a starting area. So here's my 3 against my opponent's 3. There's also some statues here in the middle. Each of these statues is next to a different colored area. And next to the board over here, you're going to have some cards here, which are they're challenge cards. And this is the other main way to get victory points. Starting with round 2, at the beginning of a player's turn, you're going to check these cards to see if you do them. So do you have 2 more champions and trap hexes? Do you control the creation area, the yellow area? If that's the case, then you're going to take that card off and get the number of points below it, which is 1, 2, 2, 1. If those cards are going to be moving, one player is going to take their turn, then the second player, and after both players take their turns, these cards move and new ones are going to come out. And these cards have to do with controlling the different areas, controlling your enemy's deployment area, having a character next to each statue, etc. And so this, again, like I said, is one of the main ways to get points. Each player has 3 actions they can take in their turn, and each of these matches one of the schools of magic. The yellow, creation; blue, manipulation; red, destruction. If you play a card that matches, you can just simply play a red card and do everything it says on the card, and you'll flip this over. I could play a blue card or a yellow card to flip those over. If I don't have the cards or I don't want to play the cards, I can also do this blue one here, which lets me move one and place one of my cards on top of the deck so that I can use that in my next hand, because you'll be drawing a new hand. Here I can move one and heal one with a yellow, or red I can flip it over to move one and do an unblockable damage to an adjacent enemy, or I can flip over any of these to move one of my people too. Now these are not optimal actions, but you'd rather play the cards, but sometimes you don't have the cards you need. When you play a card against somebody else, they usually have to take it unless they happen to have a defensive card. They can play that card and do whatever it might say on the card. Sometimes it defends, sometimes it lets them move, sometimes it lets them hit back. Each character has defense that can be used against normal attacks, and they have a certain number of hit points. If you ever take out an opponent, then you get to turn your card over, you'll upgrade, which might change your stats and or give you a special ability. So for example, Darren here now gets +2 defense while she's on a trap hex, and you don't trigger traps when she moves in them. That's pretty cool, but if you are ever knocked out by an opponent, then you go back to your normal side. And that's pretty much the rules. I mean, after that, it's just how you play a card. So there's all sorts of cards here, and they have different symbols on, like this Prowl lets her move 2. Then she can draw 2 and plan 1. And you can look at a trap token and play, then place it on any free trap hex. Here you can dash to. It's a certain kind of movement where you're moving in a straight thing. And that's after her attack. She's going to make an attack of 2, which will do 2 damage to opponent minus any armor that they might have. There's cards that will push and will pull and do different things to the enemy, and you many times want to push them onto a trap. You'll turn the trap token over, and it can be up to 1 to 3 unblockable damage, or other negative effects might happen based on whatever's on the trap tile. And when a trap tile is triggered, you'll be putting a new trap tile on one of the hexes on the board. There's different trap tile hexes on the board. And so that's it. You're just trying to maneuver and fight. You're trying to kill each other, knock each other out, but you're also trying to be next to statues and do whatever it takes so that you can get the points on these. Control the manipulation, control the destruction, have a champion adjacent to each statue, control the enemy deployment area, things like that. First person to 5 points wins. All right, folks, let's talk about the production of this game, because this game is a huge game. It comes, at least the version I got, in this giant box. Now, the game itself is not that big, but it's the miniatures. Now, I'll tell you what, folks, the miniatures here are fantastic. I really like them. I will say that they really kind of need to be painted. They would look way better painted, but they're really good miniatures. Look how awesome these statues look. They would look fantastic painted. And so that's what that looks like. The board itself is good. The card artwork is good. My only complaint about the card artwork is that when you get to the cards that match each character, they have a symbol on the top, and one doesn't. And now it has a picture usually of the character on it, but just when sorting them back out at the end, I'm always like, well, which defensive card goes with which person? I wish they put that symbol like maybe somewhere else in the card, but what have you. The symbology is not too difficult. Like this one, I'm attacking this person here, move. Once you play, you'll understand what all the different things do, the push and the pulls. The tokens themselves are nice tokens, and they work well. And in fact, I'm going to go out here and say I have the upgraded components for this game, and the trophies and the coins and the attack tokens and the traps, especially the traps. I would never use these unless they were painted. Them not being painted makes me not want to use them. I'd rather use the much easier to read tokens. Now, that's all the good. The bad, the bases don't fit on. Not all of them do. A few of them stay on, but several of mine fall off, and so you just have to slide the monsters around. That's minor. Here's the major problem with this game for me. It is the most wasteful game when it comes to space I've ever seen. You get 3 different heroes here in a blue container like this, which has a ton of empty space here in it. Only these 3 characters go in here, and has this lid on this. And now I get that you want to keep your miniatures safe, but this seems to go above and beyond. There is no room in the box, and incidentally, in the expansion box, it comes, and here's the 3 characters and some cards. This is actually a better designed one, but even this one's wasteful. But this doesn't fit in that box. There's no room for it. It's crazy. And look, I like, miniatures, but this is excess. Especially since sometimes I need to move these miniatures on the board so that you can see on the other side of them. I would rather have them not used money on this and paint it to miniatures or something like that. So I just found this to be such. I'm literally the only, and this is game trays. I normally really like game trays, but as soon as this review's over, we are chucking these. There's no reason to keep them. I'm going to find some other way to fit everything in the box. And if they ever come out with any more expansions, I want to be able to keep stuff. That box is already gigantic. This game is a huge production game, but the gameplay itself is a little small. All right, so this is a fighting game where you have 3 characters fighting 3 other characters. Do you like those kind of games?
Yeah, I guess so.
What about you?
I really like. I like these kinds of games where you're attacking the other player.
Yeah,
it's very convenient, especially when it's a 3-player game and with you, because we absolutely demolish.
Okay, but it's not a 3-player game. It's 2-player.
One thing I didn't like about it though is that on the cards, it's specifically made for one person, and you can't use it for all your characters when you attack.
Right,
So it kind of limits it.
that is true, right? And that's part of how the game works. You only have 6 cards for each character, and you do need to kind of learn how these characters work, because every character is very different. Like the one character I showed you is really good at traps, and she's good when she's on trap spaces. Some people are good just running up and fighting the other person. Some people are good at pushing. They each have their own special ability. The game is not a long game at all. It's pretty short, actually, and it's really short because you only need 5 victory points. What did you think about the victory point cards? Like, be next to the yellow statue and get points.
They were fine.
Yeah. It wasn't too difficult, though.
I agree on that, actually. I think that those cards are easier to do than taking out an opponent. It's a lot of work to take out an opponent, especially an opponent who has a lot of defense. Yes, traps, you can push people on traps. That's how I found most of the damage gets done, is by pushing or pulling people onto traps.
Yeah.
Other than that, you're not going to knock out too many people, and it's really annoying if you do knock someone out and you turn your character over and get that special ability, and then your opponent immediately knocks them out. Did you like the fighting aspect better, or did you like trying to get your characters next to the statues better?
Getting the characters next to the statues was kind of lame, so I guess I choose the fighting one.
Fighting.
There's a lot more tension with the fighting.
I agree.
And strategy.
But when going into this, realize that's only part of the game. It really is about being next to the yellow statue, being next to the red statue, being next to the blue. So you got to go into it knowing that. If you're in here, I mean, yes, the fighting is part of that, but sometimes a card will come out and say, be next to the blue statue, and if I have 2 characters next to the blue statue, and Ruby is trying to stop that, there's not a lot she can do about it. She might be able to knock one away, or get lucky, or she can just sit there and watch me take it. I also feel like the game has a slight first player advantage, since the first player can do the challenge cards before the second player. Did you think that was true?
I mean, I guess that would be true if we knew what we were doing. Well, during the first round, we just moved during the first round, not knowing what we were doing.
No, I'm not talking about the first player in the game. I'm talking about the first player doesn't change in this game. They always get to go first. So they have a chance to do a challenge before the other person can do it and remove it from the game.
Yeah.
I also, for me personally, this game is okay. I played it a few times, and each time it feels like a really small game, almost like Nirishima Hex. It's a small little game that, because there's no dice, it's just cards, it wasn't really exciting. It's okay. I found it interesting, but it was about running next to statues the whole game, and that's not necessarily what I'm looking for in a combat arena game. I want fighting and stuff. There's cool cards and cool characters, but for me, this one is just okay. I'd give it a 6 out of 10. It's not bad. If you want to play it, I'd play it, but I was really hoping to like it more. What about you?
Probably a 7, actually. I did really like the fighting, and the art is really good.
Oh, that's true. And the miniatures are really cool, if they're some of the biggest ones you've ever seen. I still think these statues are ridiculous.
Fit 'em in
Yeah,
the
I think that was
box.
my least favorite part of the game, actually, the statues.
Because
They're just really annoying.
one of your characters could be hiding behind them, and I wouldn't go above it just to look.
Well, I hope you do. There's only 3 characters.
Doesn't matter.
All right. What is your rating?
I guess also a 6.
Okay. Why?
It was mostly just running around, trying to kill the other opponent and trying to get as many points as possible. I mean, I really do like the art and the miniatures, but that's basically it, so.
Okay. Well, there you go, folks. That is Super Fantasy Brawl. We played it several different times. I played it different ways and things. I know I've seen on the internet some people are really loving it. Now we just got to figure out, now that the review's over, how we're going to put it all back in the box. You ready for that? The best
No,
part.
not again. Not again.
Until next time, I'm Tom Vasel.
I'm Violet.
And I'm Ruby.
Have fun gaming.
What?
No, I had to sneeze. Sorry.
the better end of the split second you said gaming, or else it's gonna be a sneeze.